Thank you. Yes.
All right. Having too much fun.
And call to order the joint meeting of City Council and Planning and Zoning Commission for July 2nd. It is 5 p.m. Please rise for the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Now to the Texas flag.
Honor the Texas flag. Pledge allegiance to the Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Thank you. Okay, Gary, you want to open your meeting?
Yeah, so I will. Everybody hear me okay? All right, I want to open up the joint meeting of City Council Planning and Zoning. I'll open it for Planning and Zoning. It's Tuesday, July 2nd. It's 5 o'clock, and we have a quorum of Planning and Zoning.
That's right. Is there anybody signed up for public comments? Not necessarily on the refrigerated warehouse, just in general? Is there anybody on here that's, again, not, we're going to have a public hearing on this, so if anybody's got comments specifically to the refrigerated warehouse, is there anybody that has any other comments to make other than the warehouse? If not, these four people can hold it until then. Okay. Specific public, we don't have any comments to this. Okay. Specific public hearing, 2.1, conduct a public hearing on a request for approval of a preliminary plan unit development to create world-class freezer facilities planned unit development comprising of a 134,632 square foot freezer warehouse, 84 vehicle parking spaces, and 19 tractor-trailer loading spaces located on approximately 7.19 acres tract of land. Sean?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. So whenever I provide these reports to you and we're dealing with plan unit developments, I always like to highlight the purpose of a plan unit development. And the purpose of a plan unit development, PUD, is to provide a flexible approach for development, allows a more flexible response to the market, encourage innovative mixed uses in site plan design. As the Mayor just stated, the project consists of 134,632 square foot freezer warehouse, 84 vehicle parking spaces, and 19 tractor trailer loading spaces located on approximately 7.19 acres of tract of land. The property has dual zoning currently. A large portion of the property is currently zoned C2 medium commercial, which is designated to facilitate centers which accommodate trade and personal services. The remaining portion of the property is already zoned light industrial, and as you guys are aware, in light industrial districts, warehousing is permissible by right. The light industrial district is intended to serve the needs of fabrication, assembly, warehousing, and wholesaling businesses. The map that this exhibit here actually reflects the location of the site. It's all enclosed or highlighted in yellow. The bottom portion is what I described as being the C2 zoning, and the small little fragment of property to the north is actually zoned LI. The property to the north of this is currently zoned LI within our city limits, and this is Gulf Winds Warehouse, which is about 250,000 square feet of warehousing. The property due northeast, a lot of it's chopped off, but it is zoned LI, and this is the new Transwestern warehouse. It's about 450,000 square feet. The property located due east of this property is currently zoned LI, and this property is currently owned by the port. So at some point in time, there'll be some sort of port activity on this property. as you can imagine. And so the majority of that is port property. As you go further south, this piece of property right here is part of the IDA, which is port property, and then the C3 is actually port property as well. The property to the south, due south of this property where my cursor is, currently there's a hotel, a gas station, and a small retail space. One thing that's not shown on here is on our master thoroughfare plan and exhibits that we've had for many years, there's actually 86-foot right-of-way that was dedicated to us as part of an agreement with the MOU with the port, and that alignment is with Red Bluff, which is right down in here. It comes down across the bottom of this property and then comes up and goes back into the port. At some point in time, if that right-of-way is ever developed, we could expect some sort of port traffic on that road. So there could be some other type of traffic that flows through this area that's industrial port related. I wanted to highlight that. That concludes my report. The applicant's here to provide you guys a detailed presentation on what his request is, and I'll answer any questions and before I introduce the applicant.
All right. This is a specific public hearing, so is there anybody in the audience that wants to speak for or against this project at this point? We have 4 people signed up here. What do they want to talk about? Oh, okay.
Yeah, Mayor, do you want the applicant to do their presentation?
No, that's fine. Deborah, you have a question?
Okay.
Deborah Harper, excuse me. Deborah Harper, 506 Baywood Drive, which is close to this project. I've got 2 things that I'd like to talk about. One of them is the ability of the public to get information on this. We've got a new website. I just found out, I was trying to find out about the city council meeting and found this by mistake, by accident. And at one time I asked Amanda about possibly putting on the front page of our Facebook page a calendar that would show of any meetings coming up. The way it is, it jumps around. I don't know if you're accustomed to it. Maybe I'm just not used to the new setup, but it's very difficult to find out what's going on. And even with that public here, there was not much information unless you clicked on those things. Anyway, just to make it more, a little easier for the public to get information when we've got 7 acres of our city that's being changed. The thing with this project, and I understand the problem with the industry and the port, one of the things our city did a while back, many years ago, was to spend a great deal of time putting in ordinances, rules, and laws that would keep trucks and containers out of our city because of the port project. And this seems like it would bring it in. And I understand the problem between, trying to put residential, a median area. I would like to see that if something like this is built, or any warehouse, I think there's already been a PUD done for another warehouse, that our frontage road on 146 remain commercial and let that be an area that we have businesses. It would be good for the community. It looks better than that's the entrance to our city. And I would also like to have some type of ordinance that all of the traffic going through the port road and down instead of coming in through Red Bluff and going in. Again, that's the entrance to our city. Can we keep the port in the port and the warehouses and everything that goes with the port? Keep that to the north.
Thanks,
I
Deborah.
probably have more, but I can't think of it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else? The applicant?
Left-handed mouse. All right. Use a right-handed mouse, left-handed. My name's Ken Jackson, and I own a company called Canfill Partners. I am from Southern California. Please don't hold that against me in any way, shape, or form. Keep in mind, we're from the south part of California. So this particular property came to our attention a couple of years ago. And we've been working through some different scenarios as to what would work best. And ultimately, we've laid out a building that is extremely efficient, and it does cater well to the uses of the port and the port adjacencies. So in a nutshell, if you look at this particular drawing, you can see an outline of the site. You can see that adjacent to us is the Gulf Winds facility. Across is the brand new tilt-up that's pushing 500,000 square feet. And then the port-related properties are directly across the street and to the south a little bit. The site itself, we have quite a lot of setbacks and areas that we have to deal with, water detention as well as landscaping. All of our access is off of Old Highway 146, and I'll touch on the traffic patterns here in a minute. But the building is very functional and extremely efficient for its use, which when you're building a facility of this expense, and I'll describe that shortly, it's important to be efficient. Inefficiencies are not allowed. This is a computer rendering showing the proximity to the primary container yards of the port. You can pretty well understand that anything coming into the port that's going to be stored in this facility, and you know, the Port of Houston's a very large port. It is not the largest container port by far. Los Angeles and Long Beach together dwarf just about anything else in the country. But it is growing, and the trade with South America in frozen food is growing, and Houston is primed to increase that. But almost all of our traffic that will come from the port will come down Old Highway 146. There's no need to go further into Seabrook. And the nature of the business is containers will come in, but it's not so many containers going out. The stuff that goes out is more local distribution. It'll be box trucks of various sizes that go to the different companies that are located local. So this is the type of facility where larger loads get broken down into smaller. My guess is some of the smaller trucks will, turn right on the highway and turn on Red Bluff to get on new 146. But the vast majority of our heavier traffic will come down 146. The building is very functional, but it's got clean lines. If you look at the bottom drawing, the rear elevation, that's the side of the building that faces Highway 146. And since 146 is becoming elevated at that point, it's a pretty visible property from the freeway. And that may come up in an additional discussion. Some of the reasons we felt that it was a valid request: it's adjacent to the light industrial zoning, and in fact a sliver of our property is light industrial. We've got warehouses immediately north and east, and future to the southeast or the east, depending on what the port does. And again, the majority of our truck movement is going to be to and from the complex at the port. If you look at the zoning, the overlays here, it's not quite the same map that Sean had. I didn't have the most current, but it shows that we are light industrial to the north, to the east. We're heavy truck traffic on the freeway behind us. So it is a reasonable request, in our opinion, to pursue. Some of the financial benefits to the area. The current tax roll valuation that Ms. Fredericks has on the property places the property value at about $1.7 million. When this project is finished, it will have an assessed basis of about $45 million. The cost of a freezer is nearly triple what it is to build just a dry warehouse. It is a very costly facility. It's really just a big version of the freezer you have in your kitchen. But the property tax valuation just for one project is significant. Locally, there will be 40 to 60 staffers hired. Working in a freezer is no fun. Typically across the country, Your warehouse workers that work inside a cold storage operation are paid at least double what they would be in a dry warehouse situation. The freezer itself is -5 degrees, and those guys can be inside for a sustained period of time, so you have to incentivize. So when you look at the salaries that would be paid, these are about as good a paying positions as there are in any logistics. Amazon can't touch this. It's also the highest value per square foot. It's not speculative. This is not a project where, you know, we're coming in and we want to entitle 500,000 square feet. We'll throw up a box and hope somebody comes along. You don't do that with this type of building. So this is a predestined project. Some people will find an interest in this. From an electrical consumption standpoint, this design is the highest efficiency operating system electrically. So in other words, for the amount of cubic volume that we are refrigerating, the amount of electricity that we will use is absolutely the lowest it could possibly be of any freezer anywhere in the United States. It's being designed by a group that has dozens of years of hands-on cold storage design. It's being developed by myself and my partners. Each of us have over 35 years. Much of it is in port-related development properties. A lot of my stuff is near the ports of Los Angeles and Long Beach, as well as the Bay Area. And then the operational team is collectively 100 years plus of hands-on operational experience. The designer, Rich, if you have any questions specific to the building's design, Rich is here to answer them. Rich has designed, if you look at this map, he's designed cold storage facilities in each of these blue indicated states, which you might have done some red ones, as well as a couple in Southeast Asia. He is a go-to for this type of design, and he is very competent. So if you have any questions about the specific design, he will be glad to answer. These are a couple of examples of facilities that Rich has designed. I have similar ones in California and Northern California and now Salt Lake City that I have done, but they're very straightforward in their design. There's a specific template that is highly efficient, and this building will follow that. In terms of its design, our civil engineer, Edgar Figueroa, he's a local. He's been terrific for us. He will be handling all of the civil work. He is in Spain. I yelled at him for going to Spain, but he deserves a vacation. As we evolve this with the city, Edgar is quite competent and very familiar with city requirements. But the areas in green are the areas of either detention and or landscaping that we will be installing. And the detention, because we don't have surplus land and we do have a significant amount of water, this is an example of what the detention will look like. If you go over to the Best Western Hotel to the south and you look on the south side of it, they have one of these. Don't judge us by that performance. It's clogged right now. We're not sure what's in there, but the operators of this facility are known for fastidiousness about maintenance. The landscaping will be well maintained. The facility will be painted when needed to be painted. And all of your detention drains will be cleaned when they need to be cleaned. And so please don't judge us by Best Western's property. And let's see. I think that is it. If you have further questions, there's another document in here that I can pull up. But any questions for me or for Rich?
Gary, go ahead and let P&Z go first.
So for the benefit of P&Z, we're going to go first, and I'll just pass the microphone around. I think it might be helpful to go ahead and go through that more detailed plan for
Okay.
us, and then we can just go to questions. Is that okay, Tom?
Whatever you want.
All right. So in our application document, what we prepared is a little more detail on it, and I'll just kind of walk you through the categories. There's a project description. Some of this will be redundant to what we just discussed, but I'll go into a little bit more detail. project description, which talks about the site and some other things, the zoning, the development regulations that the city has, utilities, development schedule, et cetera. So the building itself, we're requesting a PUD. That's the recommended method to achieve the zoning. And from our understanding of the city's process, this fits within that. The project description, we are currently situated between a gas station and the hotel. The hotel owner, by the way, has been very cooperative. He just wants me to have all my meetings at the hotel during the process, and we said we would. So we'll take care of that. There are 2 adjacent legal parcels. It's been vacant land for how long? So it's been vacant for as long as most people, so. And the current seller, Ms. Fredericks, is, her husband passed away, and there's been a change in her life in that regard, and so this is convenient for her. She's had no other takers, and so it's kind of a perfect relationship that way. Again, we've got the driveways are all on 146 old. We're not putting anything through to the hotel, even though there are some old easements that would allow us to do so. That's more problematic than it seems, and so we like to be self-contained and not intrude on them, and they won't intrude on us. There are some legal things that we have to do as far as the property is concerned in terms of replatting it, but that seems to be relatively easy. The high water table and some challenging soil conditions, you guys are no stranger to that in this neighborhood, so there are some things that we have to do that are quite costly, and it's actually an expense that small industrial buildings can't afford, the kind of treatment and dewatering through the process. A freezer, because of the economic conditions, is one of the unique things about it, is it can afford this kind of specialized solution. We believe it complies with your comprehensive plan. We believe it has some significant benefits to the city in that regard. The justification, you know your rules. It's to encourage high-quality development and to provide flexibility in your zoning to deal with market conditions. And, you know, I've been through enough city meetings over the years, and Rich as well, that a lot of cities don't have this ability to be nimble and deal with market changes. And there are some market changes to come soon in the logistics world. Not in this world. You won't find a Class A freezer available anywhere in the United States at this point. And that's not going to change anytime soon. I mentioned briefly the Port of Houston. It's 5th nationally in port size. It actually has more vessel calls than any other port, but so much of that is bulk material. In the containerization category, what we're seeing is there's a tremendous amount of trade now between South America and the Farm Belt of the United States, both incoming and outgoing. And we believe that Houston is a big growth market for that. And so that's one of the reasons to establish here. But we're not building a big bomber like they say they did out in Baytown. You know, our facility will have about 17,000 pallets. Some of these others are 40 and 50. And that is just way too big for what we believe the market will support. I mentioned that it's a giant piece of equipment similar to your home. It's actually so unique that the Internal Revenue Service categorizes the main freezer box as a piece of equipment for depreciation purposes, not as the same thing as a building. And so there is an economic benefit to building one of these. It's one of the reasons they cost so much. The zoning, if we are approved, it'll be an overlay and put you into the planned unit for light industrial. We'll comply with all your development regulations as we go through them, setbacks, landscaping. You know, we recognize that this building is highly visible from 146, especially from the back, and we recognize that's the gateway to the City of Seabrook off that new freeway. So if there are conversations to be had there on something that might benefit us all, we can do that. All the utilities, we're primarily an electric utility. We don't use a lot of water. We don't use gas, and all of those will be served by the various providers that are local. Once we go through the approval process, we're expecting a 4 to 6 month design period, and the construction's probably 14 to 18 months in total. As a builder, we will be using, by and large, the majority of our subcontractors will be based here in the Houston area. There may be a couple of select guys that come from out of state, but the vast majority will all be locals. We will be conducting interviews starting late August in all the major trades to get comfortable. We are pretty good at determining if a plumber has done this kind of a building before, because it has a glycol radiator system under the floor that's really quite complex. So it's really important for us to find qualified subcontractors, but we do intend to have a good 80 to 90% will be local. There's some exhibits. Those exhibits largely follow the presentation that I just presented. Okay? I would say this particular page is a little more detail. It's a little bit more detailed floor plan. The building will have a refrigerated dock that'll be maintained 40 degrees. And the freezer itself is anywhere from -5 to -10. Johnny, we doing any ice cream? Okay. And I believe that concludes these exhibits, pretty similar to the presentation. I don't think there's anything new or earth-shaking here. Okay? Is there a particular page you would like me to stop on?
No.
Okay.
So what I'll do is I'm going to pass the mic down, all the way down to the right, and we'll just.
One question.
Yes.
Is it 100% food, or are there gases and chemicals as well?
It'll be 100% food. We can't blend. So.
Okay, thank you.
So what kind of traffic studies will you do as part of your development?
Whatever the city requests of us, that's been undetermined at this point until the application came in. It's a pretty basic function, but if we need to do a traffic analysis of the trucks and the vehicles. The operating hours will be 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. So your employees will show up about halfway through, another batch will show, and because they don't work 12-hour shifts, and so the auto traffic will be pretty limited, and then the truck traffic will be, as needed,
What is your, and you've had a lot of experience with this, so what, in your experience, what do you anticipate in terms of the volume of the truck traffic?
Okay, there's a pattern. When the building is first erected, we have 17,000 pallets to fill. So I don't believe those pallets will be coming from other buildings, so it'll trickle in from the port, but it may be higher at the beginning. Once the building is stabilized, typically you may have 15 to 20 trucks a day coming from the port. Would that be reasonable?
That's the range.
You may have more trucks leaving, but they will be smaller trucks. So you may have a small Asian food distributor that is going to pick up, 20 pallets. Well, those will go into a smaller truck. So a lot of your outflow is smaller. This is not the kind of logistics that is dry. This is not a heavy truck operation. The revenue isn't in trucks. The revenue is in taking the product in, storing it, and then shipping it back out. But once it's full, it's not a heavy truck operation.
So you're saying approximately 20 inbound trucks a day?
Once we're
Typically from the port?
pretty much most of it's going to come from the port. There could be isolated. There could be a few trucks from competitors who aren't doing so great in their customer service, and they make a change. And so I can't say 100%, but the vast majority of this facility is.
A mix between the 20 and 40-foot containers coming in, or is that just up in the air?
There really are not. It doesn't make a lot of sense to ship refrigerated 20-footers. That's a rarity because it costs the same amount as a 40-footer, and you're amortizing that cost. So most of them will be the 40-footers.
Unless you wait out, which I assume frozen food's pretty heavy.
It can be, but there are limits anyway. It still doesn't make sense to throw a pallet of frozen shrimp into a 20-footer. it makes more sense, even if you have fewer pallets, to put that in the 40-footer. Deboned frozen chicken can be pretty heavy, but nothing that is like, you know, I build buildings where we deal with rice and things that are really heavy. This is not a heavy load. We're not looking at doing overweight containers. All we're looking at doing is doing what works along old Highway 146.
With the proximity of homes, et cetera, and the activities of the port, sometimes, how do you anticipate communication to occur outside of the building? Will it be a PA system, or will it primarily be done by radio once on site?
I don't think we're going to have any loudspeakers or anything on the outside of the building. The truckers are given a lounge to wait in, and so there's no need to go summon them from some other place. And so it's a pretty quiet operation throughout its period by comparison.
Okay, I've got a few, you mentioned traffic pattern around the building, but you didn't cover it. Can you go through why the traffic goes around the building? Actually, the one above's fine.
Okay.
It's got trucks on it, so.
Sure. So we want our drivers to be backing into the loading positions over the driver door. So all the trucks will come in off of Old Highway 146 off the southern driveway. That also allows for the operator to comply with regulatory requirements handed down by federal agencies on food control. So the trucks themselves will come in that driveway.
Can you put your cursor?
Yeah. So this driveway here.
So
the
the truck's going backwards?
Correct.
They're gonna come in that way?
They're going to come in from here. They'll pull in. There's plenty of queuing space to do this. And then they pull forward, and then they back in over the driver's door. It's much safer that way. When they go to leave, I'm guessing we may use the same driveway primarily, but they will have at least the right to do this. We're going to have some of this around the building is fire related. And so that's why the setbacks allow for trucks and vehicles to be mobile all the way around the building. But the vast majority of our activity is going to be right through here.
So are those trucks that are sitting there just parked?
Yeah, but that's not long-term. So what'll happen is when a container is unloaded, it may be a day or two before the drayage trucks can get it back over to the port to ship out, or it may be waiting on a load that's outbound to come in and then can be loaded into that to be shipped out. We still export a lot of proteins out of this country, and Houston's offering an opportunity to shorten that process.
Okay. So most of my concerns are around noise. That's why I was trying to understand what's going on. So when I looked at that, it looked like trucks were going to use that as a thoroughfare. So it's almost like there's a highway in front of the hotel.
Oh, are you referring? No. There
That's
is,
what I'm trying to figure out.
yeah, there may be the occasional need to stage a vehicle there for a little while.
But you're not going to have
No.
trucks going once an hour or 2 hours.
No.
They're just going to park them there.
Correct. We had to have a fire lane anyway, and it just so happens with the easement with the hotel and so forth, that's a little wider. So we do have a room to stage a trailer if we want to park it there for a bit, but this is not a business that thrives on empty containers. Those really need to be filled and out the door again.
It just struck me strange because it's right there, so maybe we go into our session and talk a little bit more about just noise abatement if it's needed. The other noise issue that I've heard about, so where are the refrigeration units and how are they internal?
Everything is internal.
So there's no noise abatement on
There
the
is hardly anything to hear.
building. Otherwise it couldn't work very well.
You know, there are a lot of people who put them up on the roof. We don't believe in that. We believe that the equipment degrades faster. We believe it's harder to maintain. So most of your engine facility is within the building on a structural mezzanine. Let me go to a floor plan so you can kind of see. You can see the mechanical, but this one's probably wise. So if you look at the bottom of the loading dock, there is a 2-story structural mezzanine in there, so there is some equipment on the ground floor, but a lot of the screw compressors that would ordinarily make a significant amount of noise are on that mezzanine. And then the air handler units, the fans that are inside the refrigerator, they're all inside. There's nothing on top of this roof, and the only equipment that would be on top of the loading dock would be normal HVAC equipment for the office. And that's at the far end.
Sorry, I got, talked about traffic study. So go back to the, even though you got the trucks. Yeah, I got a little concerned about when if a truck's coming around, their lights are actually gonna be into northbound frontage road, so I'm a little concerned about how you make sure that you don't cause a panic and somebody thinking it's a minor detail.
Well, it's probably one where the renderer who drew this didn't have a fire engine, because that's pretty much the only vehicle that will maneuver this way, maybe occasionally, but that is really a fire lane along the back.
Okay.
So,
And that's what your intent is, that makes more sense.
yes.
Okay.
And that's a good catch. I should have caught that, and I should have made him change to a fire engine.
I sure would have asked another question, I probably would have come out a little differently. So, and I guess, you said you talked to the hotel.
So we started our discussions with the prior owner. He was foreclosed on, and one of the original concepts, this building was rotated, and the loading was facing the hotel, and he was actually okay with that version. And there are some old easements between the properties that we could have rightfully claimed, and it would have allowed us to come and go on the property as we please, but that really wasn't effective. So he and I spoke at length, the new owner who bought it out of foreclosure, and he's been very friendly. He owns a lot of hotels, so he's quite busy, but he has been a gentleman. And we were just going to agree to abandon those easements on title. Not sure if we're going to, because they're a mess. They're 30 years old, and they probably weren't done correctly, and so cleaning them up. So we'll just leave them on paper and never exercise, because our plan doesn't need any of that access.
Anybody else want to?
Yeah, I've got one. When the containers are on chassis, waiting to be loaded, unloaded, are you gonna supply hookups, or are they gonna be using generators off the chassis?
They will be hooked up. There will be connections, and over-the-road container trucks or trailers have a different electrical connection than the container units do. So there will be a duplex on the face of each loading dock, so that if it's an over-the-road reefer, it can connect to the internal power of the building. And if it's a container, it will as well. There will be no...
When you say over the road, you're talking a trailer?
A big trailer, correct. So,
So are you gonna supply a container that comes in, are you gonna supply the hookup for it, or is it gonna have to use a generator?
no generator. We will have a dual system. There are two different connections for... We learned this the hard way a long time ago. Over-the-road trailers have one type of electrical outlet. Containers have a different one. We have to put in a duplex to serve both at each door position. And there's no external generator. One thing that I'm not sure is, because of your periodic weather adventures down here, hey, I lived through a lot of earthquakes, so 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. There may be an external generator only in the case of emergencies for the refrigeration. We lose power for a sustained period of time here. That facility's got $30 million worth of product in it.
Just open it up for everybody to see.
What's your experience in that in
Hey,
California?
guys, can use the microphone. We can't hear it on the recording. Can't hear it on the recording. Use the mics.
I take it you have a lot of experience in California with your rolling blackouts on generators on property? And I am from California, so I'm pretty familiar with them, so.
You know our world out there. We're just a bunch of crazies living in Mr. Newsom's world.
That'll be a discussion afterwards.
I'm more than happy to have it. Been there my whole life. My mom was a native. My dad's a Texas native, so but, that's another story. But yes, haven't had that much experience. In fact, I'm remodeling a large seafood facility that a Vietnamese seafood client of mine built 20 years ago. And he actually was thinking of selling his generator because in 20 years, he's never had an outage that was long enough to trigger it. But that doesn't mean it can't happen. We also haven't had a 6.5 to 7 earthquake in our area in the last 20 years. So.
Anybody else, anything come to mind? All right, Tom.
Council, any questions? Let's go down the row. Joe?
It's kind of far out from where the last warehouses were, but I've looked online and what the citizens are saying. Right now, there's not one single person online saying that they like this, but they're not here and they're not seeing this unless they're on watching this right now. One of the questions they have is, will it put out any ammonia? I don't, the way you have it set up, I don't think it will, but that's one of the questions they have.
So refrigerants have become a hot button nationally, and this will be an ammonia-based system.
This will be
But
what?
it will be an ammonia-based refrigeration system. But these systems are self-contained, and the leaks are almost never. And if they are, it's a pinhole. And so we don't really have, I've been doing this for 25 years on just freezers, and I've never had an ammonia leak or even a freon leak. We explored a new carbon dioxide system, which starts with a little ammonia charge, and then it goes to carbon dioxide, which is environmentally the most friendly. But that can't really be used in a hot, humid environment. It has to be someplace where you have 4 seasons and is drier. And so we did explore it. Overall, ammonia is still by far the most safest refrigerant of all, even though, yes, it is an ammonia system.
Mike?
So I love that you have a relationship with the hotel owner, which is perfect. The only concern that I have, if I'm the hotel owner, is kind of like a little buffer or hiding the trucks that are possibly going to be parked there, because I think that's we were just discussing it earlier too, and I think that would be one of my concerns, because if I'm a guest at that hotel, I don't want to be looking out at the BT River, in the morning. Granted, it's a lot of industry that are staying there already, but I just think a lot of trucks possibly parked there, like Gary was saying too, that would be only my concern, if there would be some maybe high bushes or something that could maybe buffer that a little bit for them, but.
Right now, there is an 8-foot fence and it is completely covered. Now, we can discuss with your Planning and Zoning Commission how best to do that, but you can't even see into the property from the parking lot at all right now. And so, yeah, we're sensitive to that as well. And if the current is great, we leave it. If it is not to anybody's satisfaction, we'll address it and cooperate fully.
Woody? Or Tom?
Let's go back to the traffic issue again. Are you saying that the trucks will not be going south and around Red Bluff?
So I can't say never, and I'm not going to say the smaller trucks, because keep in mind, the smaller trucks are probably going to be heading back toward Metro Houston. So when you have a smaller distributor or restaurant company that's picking up something, in all likelihood, if they need to get on the freeway, that's the route they're going to go. The vast majority of your tractor trailer, container and or trailer is coming from the port. Again, I can't commit to 100%, but it is impractical for anything more than a negligible amount to come from the south.
I'm sure you've already seen that Red Bluff at 0146 is a huge issue. It is problematic.
Yes.
It is ridiculous. The citizens hate it. And if we're going to add another warehouse,
Yes.
then another warehouse to it, and we add 40 or 50 more trucks a day, and what you're talking about, 6-wheelers, right? Box trucks?
Yeah, the box
moving-
trucks are probably,
So, and they move in and out a lot, and I can imagine.
they're a fairly quick load, yes.
Is there other alternatives that you guys might be able to find, even if we
determine a different time for them to go in and out? I mean, the traffic jam in the mornings and the afternoons are over the top.
So I have been here a few times, and the overpass on Route 146 was under construction a couple of times, and I was cursing your TxDOT for how they managed that, you know. Ironically, Caltrans in California does a pretty good job of working that. Are you suggesting that southbound Old 146 gets really backed up at 7 o'clock in the morning?
It does,
Okay.
but also in the afternoon, but all day long as well.
On the southbound.
My question is that can they go north?
I'm going to suggest that we can, all right, so anything that's being exported will go north. Any empty containers that are going back to the port will go north.
Why couldn't the box trucks go north?
I suppose they can, but how do I enforce that? I can encourage it, I can,
Well, we can help with that because we have a commercial division at the police department, and we can help by finding another route for them to go. I'm saying this is a serious issue around that corner, and it's got to be addressed, and I don't know that we've really addressed it in this presentation yet.
fair enough. I would also suggest that, you know, in their business, time is money. The minute they feel that traffic is a problem headed south, they're going to do the right thing and go north. But we're also open to suggestions on how we manage that. And I don't think that's a problem in terms of encouraging people to go north.
Well, I would encourage you to really look into this and to see if there are other alternatives and help us with that. It is a serious problem at this time. It sounds like it could be a much more serious problem in the future. So,
Can you help?
moving on away from that.
Okay.
Are you processing anything? Are you bringing any fresh food?
No.
Or any fresh seafood through?
No,
And so you're not slacking out any seafood at all?
none. There is no processing, no USDA out.
So you're box in, box out?
Or pallet in, pallet out.
Okay.
You know, Mr. Fertitta needs a special order. He's going to send somebody to pick up a couple of lobster tails and, you know, be a case in, case out. So you have no idea how varied the amount of material that goes in and goes out. But somebody needs something, they come and get it.
Is it fair to say that the majority of the product that goes through this warehouse will be international?
It's fair to say that. It'll either be coming in or going out of the country in many respects, yes.
Okay.
Just to clarify a few things, 0146 is a TxDOT road. They control it. Red Bluff is a county road. They control it. The city has no authority over either one. The land that is north of Red Bluff, that's in the Bayport Industrial District, is going to be developed. This may be the least impact. Yes, we've got traffic issues, and anybody that drove down Port Road before they started Bayport, it was a two-lane blacktop, and you can see how it's been developed. So we're going to have to bring the county in, TxDOT in, and the port in to address this. The land where the stables were, the port has acquired that, and it's not going to sit vacant, and I don't see it being a park. So I think the traffic you're talking about, your warehouse, ain't going to be that big a deal compared to some other stuff that's coming in. So I think it's incumbent upon the city to get with the port, pull all of them together, and see if we can get the pressure done to get this thing. And I appreciate what you're saying, Tom, because I go up there too. And I wouldn't say that I went straight and went through the South Station to get up on 146, because I don't think that's legal, but I think some people do.
Well, we would do.
If you guys are adventurous, when that discussion with the state and the county starts, why don't you propose to the state that they let us have a driveway right here onto the frontage road for those smaller trucks? I had heard that. That's why it doesn't show.
Rob, can you hear us? You're muted. You still can't hear you. You can't hear you. Rob, we can't hear you. Somebody,
Unmute. Unmute. There you go.
nope,
Not working.
I heard that.
This is a family show.
I can't hear you, Rob.
Hey, Rob, wave if you can hear us.
Rob, can you hear us?
Wave, Rob, can you hear? You can hear us? We cannot hear you. So.
I'm sure you're saying
Can't
something.
hear you, Rob.
Or we move on, Tom.
We were talking a little while ago.
We was talking a while ago.
Sometimes Zoom, if you log out and log back in, it'll flick a switch.
Try logging out and back in. In the meantime, we cover.
Mayor, in the meantime, Gail.
Yeah. Okay, go ahead, Jackie. Go ahead, Jackie. We'll come back to Rob.
When it's your turn.
Again, I'm also concerned with the traffic. It's been, a lot of citizens are, and one 18-wheeler at that light at Red Bluff, it just completely messes the whole thing up. And I think the last time you came, you told us it was like all the trucks were, now it's kind of like the vast majority, and that we're going to encourage them. It's probably not going to happen. I thought that they were going to have a divider or something where they couldn't turn right or something like that was discussed the last time. Is that not?
That might not be me.
Okay.
That wasn't him. That was
This is
totally
my
different people.
Okay. Sorry.
It's okay.
Still, either way, traffic is an issue. And that's, we're going to have almost two more trucks an hour, 1.6 an hour. I mean, just on that little area.
And
are you-
I understand that, but I did a little back of the envelope analysis on 7 acres of commercial zone. If that became, say, a supermarket shopping center, the sheer number of trips per day would dwarf whatever it is that we're doing. So I think that's one of the reasons Ms. Fredericks thought that our use would be something that functions well, satisfies most of the concern. And we'll try to manage all of our flow as best we can. But the vast majority is going to come from the north, and a significant amount is going to go back to the north.
Okay. And can you tell us a little bit more about what types of food that you say? Because it's not going to go towards Kemah, right?
Oh, it could be anything. But the typical is frozen seafood, shrimp, scallops, both farmed and imported, frozen chicken that's leaving the country, pork, beef, mostly proteins. But sometimes somebody needs 10,000 pallets of frozen bread. A lot of restaurant food prep is done in a way it's 80% cooked, and then it goes through a spiral freezer, and then it is stored. Like if you guys have Hardee's or Carl's Jr., those hamburger patties are not cooked in the store. They're 80% prepped in a factory, and then they're sent. Same with the chicken, the boneless breast of chicken. You can't cook chicken in 5 minutes and be fast. So it's 80% pre-cooked, goes through a spiral, packaged, frozen in bulk, then it goes to the individual restaurants. So the vast majority of what will come in here is going to be frozen, but it could be frozen peaches. It could be seasonal, but the general rule is it's going to be a protein.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you. And also, are you aware of the Findlay, Washington fire? And do you know about that fire that happened that burned for 7 weeks in April of this year?
Yes, I am.
Do you know what happened there?
Yeah, actually, it was an operator who has taken some shortcuts with how he stored his product. During the first initial contact, the firefighters encountered material they couldn't get around, but they thought they got the fire. They put it down, they left. But because of inappropriate ways in which storage in a 40-year-old building, when they came back, by the time they got to it, it was too late. And it was significant. These buildings don't burn easily. And you've got to be incompetent for that to happen. You either have to, a very aged building where the maintenance isn't taken care of, but the sprinkler system even the firewall that separated, this thing was massive. It was over 500,000 square feet, so it's
Right.
almost 5.5 times this size. But even the fire separation walls failed. But that's how old this building was. It had been added on, and it was kind of jerry-rigged together. And the fire department just said, let it burn.
Yeah, okay.
So if your french fries cost a little more, it's because that building was full of tater tots, french fries, and hash browns.
Wow.
I did not build that building.
And I just want to ask, you do have all of this. When I was reading, it sounds like not all freezer warehouses have to have like sprinkler systems.
Oh, yes, they do.
Okay.
This will be a system that's called a quell, which is pretty much a state-of-the-art. Keep in mind, it's a freezer, so your pipes can't have water in them inside the freezer, or your sprinkler system
Right.
will not discharge. So there's a thing called a fusible link that when a fire reaches a certain temperature, it melts, then the water comes rushing in. And this is designed to be, it's the freezer equivalent of what we call an ESFR type system, early suppression fast response, which unlike what you see in the movies when a building sprinkler system goes off, it's not a shower. It's actually a light rain. But this is designed to tackle everything throughout the entire racking system in a manner that is pretty quick.
Okay, thank you.
And it should never fire off.
Okay, good. Thank you. That's all.
Okay, we have you now, Rob?
I believe you do. I've been able to hear you perfectly well all along.
Okay, we can hear you.
All right. First off, kudos to P&Z. The questions they asked knocked the 4 that I had written down off the list. I appreciate the effort that they do into making sure that they look at these things thoroughly. I understand from the discussions from fellow council members and the stuff I've seen online that traffic flow is a significant concern, if not the number one concern. As a city, we have to be aware of who owns that intersection there at Rutbluff and what has to be done and what plans are already underway to upgrade it. Once we get 146 widened all the way north, that's going to alleviate some of those problems. But as the port goes in to the land that they already own on the other side of the road, the number of trucks that this facility is going to put on the road is not significant. I am concerned with what's going in across the road from it, due east. But I think this is a good compromise with trying to minimize that traffic that we know is coming.
Is that it?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thanks, Rob. Well, I guess my biggest take on this is that, you know, there's traffic at the port. It's mostly southbound. That's the worst time of day. The northbound traffic seems to be pretty well maintained because they stagger the trucks going out, just like you would. You know, you're only doing a 7 to 7 operation. The port is now talking about, because of the amount of traffic, they're talking about going into the 12 to maybe even a Saturday and Sunday type of operation. So we've had a lot of talks with the port and TxDOT. They're working on some solutions. They're coming, but it's going to take time. Just like this, we're talking 18 months to 2 years for this project. Hopefully something will be done prior to that, or at least in the works before that happens. Again, I don't think that there's a lot of traffic that will be major truck traffic on Red Bluff. I think the port has eyes on that intersection anyway. So I like the project. Economically, I love the project. You mean we just can't shut our city down because there's going to be 10 more trucks on the road. We can't stop commerce. And in having a few more trucks in this city, I don't think is a major issue compared to the benefit that we will get. I mean, if council wants to shut the city down, we can raise taxes. I mean, it's not a problem. I would never vote for that, but some may. But anyway, I think it's a good project. We appreciate you doing this, or at least I appreciate you doing this for the city.
Thank you, Mr.
And congratulations.
Thank you.
Tom, I got one question, just a comment on traffic. Has the city approached to, anybody to put a third lane in there at Red Bluff so that there's a left turn, straight lane, and right turn? Because part of the problem is that it stacks up by trucks that could be making a right turn on red.
So that section is in the 146 project to Spencer Highway right now, so it's completely been redesigned whenever they do construct it.
Shouldn't they do a short turn even? I'm kind of,
We've asked. There's also a U-turn in that detention area as well.
there's God, there's the railroad, and there's Texas, I understand.
Yep.
You got the railroad
Well,
position.
the port ranks port ranks higher.
And the other comment, just from having lived on that side, I find going to Meyer faster these days, so, and traffic's efficient, and I think, what'll happen, I suspect, is residents.
Can you turn that mic on that's in front of you?
It's not on?
No.
Turn this on.
Thank you.
What I find is it's faster to go to Red Bluff, not to go through Red Bluff, to go to Repsdorf. And traffic's efficient, so residents who are getting out there, you can go to Repsdorf and then come north or south pretty easily. So I found that it hardly ever backs up there. So just a comment. And I'm actually surprised because people find ways out of things and traffic's very efficient. So I've gotten burned enough times at 5 o'clock going to Red Bluff and found that if I'd gone the other way, I'd been fine. Just a hint for everybody.
I appreciate it, Gary, thanks. Any other questions, any other comments? At this point, if nobody's, close the public hearing. Thank you, appreciate it. So, Gary, you're going to adjourn?
Yeah, so I'll adjourn this joint meeting of City Council. Can I get a motion?
Motion to adjourn.
In a second? Second, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, and so Z is adjourned, and then we'll go across the hall to deliberate and provide council order.
Okay, also, do I hear a motion from council?
Move to adjourn.
Second? All in favor? Thank you. We are adjourned. It is 6:02.